What's up, Facebook? What's up, Instagram? I hope you're having a fantastic start to your week. This evening kind of serves as a friendly reminder to help you get rid of the emotion typically tied to the scale, and something that will actually help you finally remove any anxiety, unnecessary stress, wasted thoughts, wasted time, and wasted energy on that scale number, because now you'll have a better understanding of the many factors that are involved in that daily fluctuation you see. Now, let me start by prefacing with a few examples of daily scale fluctuation so you understand what I mean, and then we're going to dive into 6 specific factors that are, very frequent among a slew of individuals that influence that number and what you can do about them to take a deep breath, relax, and be at ease when you do see that number on the scale this morning, the next morning, and many more mornings to come. So first of all, let's take my daily weigh-ins for the past couple weeks. I have fluctuated anywhere from 171.4 to 173.8, back down to 172, back up to 173.2, all the way up to 174.8, and wouldn't you know, all the way back down to 170.9. So within those, 5 or 6, the handful of weigh-ins, I have fluctuated between 170.9 and 174.8, just shy of 4 pounds. Every time I stepped on the scale and the scale went up, I didn't just gain 2 or 3 pounds of body fat. Similarly, every time I stepped on the scale and it went down from my previous weigh-in, I didn't just lose a few pounds of body fat. If only. Anywho, I digress. The point is that these fluctuations happen. And let me give you one more, what may come across as an extreme example, but is actually a real-life example of a client of mine I worked with. This is a woman. She was weighing in between 160 and 163 pounds fairly consistently, 160.4, 162.8, back down to 161.2. Next thing we know, she's up to 168, 168.8, 169.2, back down to 168. A couple days later, back down to 160. An 8.5 pound fluctuation in a given time frame of about 7, maybe it was 8 days. What the hell? Did she just put on 7 or 8 pounds of fat? Or did she drink that much water or eat that much food that she had so much in her digestive tract? No. This daily fluctuation, which turned into be kind of a weekly fluctuation, was a result of her being, during her menstrual cycle, she was having her menses. So now all of a sudden she has a complete commotion of hormones, water retention, fluid balance shifts going completely crazy, and this reflected as a 7.5, 8 pound jump on the scale. Well, as soon as her menses ended, she came right back down to her normal range and actually went on to have a stellar dieting phase where she lost 17 pounds in about 11.5 weeks. Despite having that 7.5, 8 pound jump. So my point is, weight's going to fluctuate. You may see some shocking numbers on your own scale or hear of other stories. And I'm here to tell you, first of all, that you can expect, even for the smallest female, a 2 to 5 pound daily fluctuation based on the factors I'm going to describe in a minute. And then, for somebody with a larger body frame, tipping over 200, 250 pounds, you may see 5 up to 7 or 8 pounds as a daily fluctuation. This is normal, and we need to start our conversation there with this foundation of an expectation of normalcy so that now we can better understand why these variables influence that number and be able to take a deep breath, kind of a sigh of relief, it's okay, this is normal, I'm going to keep doing my thing, focusing on what I can control and move forward. Now, the first 2 items are quite obvious. The food and fluid you consume the day before are going to have a major impact on the morning number you see the next day. For instance, let's say you're used to eating 2,000 calories per day, drinking 120 ounces of fluid per day. Well, last night you had a big party, a big social gathering, you ate about 4,000 calories per day and consumed about 220 ounces of fluid. Some of that alcoholic, some of that non-alcoholic. You're going to see a jump on the scale the next day for several reasons, but mainly you consume more calories, you have a lot more food sitting in your digestive system, and a lot more fluid in your body. No, you did not just put on, 3, 4, 5 pounds of fat, nor did you build 3, 4, 5 pounds of muscle. This is all related to your previous day's food and fluid intake. Next up, let's talk about your previous day's sodium intake. Maybe you went to your favorite Asian restaurant last night and just loaded things up with soy sauce. Oh man, I had the best sushi on Saturday night, by the way, for a different story. Anywho, if you like to salt a lot of foods, you had your saltiest dishes, you had soy sauce, you added anything salty the day before, this too is going to be reflected on the scale and likely going to lead to a couple pound jump. The reason being, this sodium enhances water absorption and enhances your thirst, or your feeling of thirst. Therefore, you're drinking more, you're absorbing, you're retaining more, and now, when you step on the scale the next morning, you've got more fluid in your body, thus you see a few pound jump on the scale. Now, fourth, for women out there, we kind of already touched on it in the beginning, but your menses, that part of your menstrual cycle has a major influence on the scale. And this is as a result of the fluctuation in hormone production and fluid shifting and, actual blood loss during your menstrual cycle. It's extremely important for women out there, I highly recommend this, that you continue to step on the scale during every week, every day, every week and every part of your cycle. So when you are in the menses phases, don't just avoid the scale. It's important to learn how that scale, or how your menses and that part of your menstrual cycle impacts the scale, so you learn what to expect. Therefore, you don't freak out next month when you see a 6-pound increase. Extremely important for you to recognize. Fifth, moving on, believe it or not, your daily stress levels are going to have a significant impact on the scale number the next day. And the reason being, when we are stressed, we increase production of the hormone, or the stress hormone, known as cortisol. Cortisol is going to lead to increased water retention. Again, now we have more fluid in our body, we're retaining more water, we may feel bloated, and therefore we see a few pound jump on the scale the very next morning. So, what can you do about that stress? First, smile, laugh a little bit, or consider meditation, consider getting your exercise in, listening to music, reading a book, doing some yoga, something. You need to seek out a few key stress relieving activities. For me personally, I love meditating every morning. I use the free app Headspace, 10 minutes of awesomeness to start my day. For me, weight training is a form of stress relief. Krav Maga, which is Israeli self-defense training, is another form of stress relief. I enjoy reading, I enjoy music, and I love laughing. So find a few key strategies you can incorporate daily to relieve stress, to make sure that you don't experience some significant fluctuation in your weight day to day. And lastly, one of the often overlooked variables that influences that scale number is yesterday's training session. If you just completed a very high volume bout of resistance training, you are going to be experiencing significant muscle damage, significant inflammation. Well, in return, that leads to water retention and, oh, by the way, a couple pound jump on the scale the next morning. If you know that you just completed a few hard workouts in a row, or if your volume just picked up for this training block, don't be alarmed if you see the scale jump up. Now, quick recap. Previous day's food intake, previous day's fluid intake, previous day's sodium intake, previous day's stress, where you're at in your menstrual cycle, and your previous day's workout all influence the scale number. First off, stop weighing in every single day. It's a waste of precious time and energy. Just 2 to 3 weigh-ins will get you by just fine. Now, next, when you see this fluctuation, just laugh. You know it's to be expected. I'm sure you can identify one of those 6 variables, if not more, that has influenced that morning weight. And thirdly, pay attention to the long-term trend. Average your weekly weights out and then compare the average week over the long term. Assess that change. Adjust your nutrition and exercise as necessary. Questions, comments, concerns, I'd love to hear them. I appreciate you taking a few minutes this evening to spend with me to chat about these variables. I'll be back tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, chatting more nutrition and exercise related information with you. Until then, have a kick-ass Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow.